Hey guys, this is VA Bengal. I want to clear the air on something that there's a ton of misinformation floating around about, and that is the DI, or Directional Influence System in Smash 4. If you aren't familiar with conventional DI from Melee and Brawl, I linked a video in the description that explains it really well, but if you're only worried about Smash 4, it's not super important. So around the time Smash for 3DS launched, we started hearing about this system called vectoring, which basically said that for survival purposes, when being launched, you should hold the analog towards the stage to decrease your knockback. So if you're being launched upwards, hold down. If you're being launched to the right, hold left. For any competitive Smash veterans, this was naturally pretty counterintuitive, since DI and Melee, PM, and Brawl had us doing something way different. Now, if we fast forward to version 1.02, aka the Smash for Wii U patch, people started to notice that the vectoring system that we'd been getting used to for the past month or so was behaving a bit differently. Discussions were happening on Smash boards, and people were forming all sorts of conclusions. People started to postulate that the vectoring system had been removed outright in favor of conventional DI from earlier iterations of the game. When these threads started to pop up on Reddit, well, the rest is history. People accepted the claim for what it was without doing any sort of testing on their own. Next thing you know, everyone, I'm talking top players, commentators, etc., are preaching that the correct way to DI is as you did in Melee and Brawl. To this day, most people still believe that. So with all that said, let's take a look at what's really going on. What you're seeing here is the highest percent that Mario can survive a Sonic back throw at the edge of the stage without any DI. Anything above 128, and he dies. If Mario were to DI the throw up, as he might in Melee, we can see that he's still dying at anything above 128. But on top of that, as you'll see here, Mario actually dies even earlier by DIing up than he would have by not DIing at all, getting KO'd as early as 125%. Now, if Mario instead holds the analog towards the stage when getting thrown, he can survive it up to 145%, only getting KO'd once his damage reaches 146. That's 16% longer than he would have survived had he not DI'd at all, and 20% longer than he would have had he DI'd up, like most people would advise. If you're still not convinced vectoring's a thing, here's what happens if Mario vectors outwards instead of inwards. He gets KO'd as early as 116%, as opposed to the 125 he would have died at without any DI at all. You might be wondering at this point, okay, if DIing up makes me die earlier, what happens if I DI down? DIing down does let you live longer than no DI at all, but you're at a really poor recovery angle, and it still doesn't keep you alive as long as DIing towards the stage did. So, in some odd way, holding up seems to increase your horizontal knockback, while holding down seems to decrease it. If you've been paying attention, by now you're probably thinking, well, what happens if I hold down and towards the stage? The answer to that is that you're still taking slightly more horizontal knockback than you would have if you just held towards the stage, and your recovery angle is worse to boot. The short answer is, to avoid getting KO'd horizontally, just hold towards the stage. Now, vertical knockback behaves a bit differently than horizontal. As you can see here, without any DI, Mario can survive an up smash at no higher than 102%. Now what if I DI down? That should decrease the knockback, right? Not quite. Any vectoring properties do not seem to apply when taking vertical knockback. When holding down, Mario still dies at 103% at the earliest. If I DI up instead, same story. The input has no effect and Mario continues to survive at 102, but die at 103. So far, in this sense, vertical knockback is behaving similarly to Melee or Brawl DI. Now let's see what happens if I DI to the right, towards Fox. I actually die a few percent earlier than I would without any DI at all. The reason for that is that I'm straightening out the angle of the trajectory, giving my flight a shorter path to the blast zone. What we're seeing here is truly reminiscent of classic DI. Now let's look at what happens if I DI away. Since I make the trajectory even more diagonal, I'm living longer than I would have had I not DI'd at all. So when people say that vectoring was removed and classic DI was brought back, they're right to an extent. Vectoring has been removed for vertical knockback, but is still very much in play for horizontal knockback. As far as vertical knockback goes, regular DI has actually been there all along, but it was just masked by vectoring, which is a much more dominant mechanic in this engine. With vectoring removed for vertical knockback, DI once again becomes relevant. Please share this information with others so that we can set the record straight once and for all on how DI works in Smash 4. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, and you want to stay up to date with more great content, be sure to subscribe and check out my Twitter and Twitch as well. Thanks for watching.